Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is a beautiful Friday morning. Why? It's raining on the outside. We do need the rain. It's been very hot though, although it's raining and we have conditions during the whole week. It's still very hot. It's humid, but I suppose that's life. God knows what is best for us. Nature has our back, and I suppose that these are things that are absolutely necessary. They know what, when, and how to do it. I'm not a scientist. As a matter of fact, I have no idea of what nature is about. I just love the fact that we have the seasonal time when it can be rainy and sunshine, and variety is really the spice of life. And so let's all enjoy it. For those of you in tune to WinFM 98.9, it's about that time. It's a time when we bring you your views. Your views is the program that is aired on WinFM every Friday morning at 10 o'clock. Yeah, it's after 10, but sometimes we have programs that precedes us, and we have other situations that can delay it, but not to worry. We always share here, so it's not really a big problem, and it's just what life is. If everything is going to be on time, sometimes it's not a good thing, and sometimes it's a good thing. So let's take it for what we have. My name is Sandra Quilly Atherton. I'm your host for this morning's program. Usually I'm the host for the morning's program. Normally it's a program. Sometimes you can call in. Other times we have guests that can share information. Like I said, it's a program that gives all the information that you want, and you can also share your information. But this morning, I have with me a guest, and because we're already late, let me not extend, you know, talk any longer. Just to see if I can introduce my guest. I think she's on air right now. Her name is Janice Daniel. It's Superwoman, she is. I mean, she's the lady who wants to dethrone the Prime Minister, the Premier of Nevis. She has her reasons why. I suppose Nevisians would side with her or they would disagree with her when the time comes. I suppose based on the message that she gives, people are going to follow that message. Janice, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Quilly Atherton.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's
I
Sandra. don't go on with Quilly Atherton. Just say good morning, Sandra.
Good
That's good.
morning, Sandra.
Hi, good.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
It's always a pleasure. I've been trying to do that for a long time, but you are greatly in need. I suppose your future looks like it's going to be filled with attention and desires, and you're a caretaker and hope to take on that role to take care of all Nevisians. And I suppose you're going to be busy from now on till you decide to throw in your towel. And even that time, people will be calling on you for advice. What's weather like in Nevis?
Well, it's a little bit overcast. Pretty much the same as the economic conditions and the way that people are feeling right now. But we do have hope for brighter days. We do have hope that the sun will shine brightly. You did indicate that, yes, we need the rain from time to time, and everything has a balance. There's a season for everything. And we just have to understand that you need to balance. You need to have a balance. Too much rain is not good. Too much sunshine is not good. And so the good Lord up above knows that and ensures that we have what we need in abundance.
Well,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. Well, I like what you said. It's the economy. It's the whole world's economy is overcast, and we need people now more than ever to see people who have ideas. I think that is one of the things, the areas that are in great demand. People who have ideas of how to turn around or stimulate an economy. And I want to know what the position is like in Nevis. Are we seeing that stimulation? Are people crying out like the whole world is crying out? Or it's just business as usual in Nevis?
Well, it's business as usual. I would say from the NIA's perspective, it's definitely not business as usual for the masses, for the people who don't know how they're going to be paying their electricity bills, for the people who don't know how they're going to put food on the table. It's definitely not business as usual. And those are the reasons why we have to understand the role of government. And it's not a situation where we can sit back and let things unfold. We must be able to shape the direction in which we want the country to go. And we must be able to recognize when we need to implement additional measures, different measures. Cannot be the status quo. We cannot put a budget in place in January and you have major disasters and you just sit back and continue as if nothing needs to be done. Um, Once you understand and you're connected with the people, and you can hear their cries and you understand that they're struggling, then you must recognize that things should be done differently. Different measures should be put in place. You should probably work a bit harder to try to bring more resources to the country. And so these are things that we have to understand as a government. You have,
I think we've lost her. Let me see what my technician is doing. Um,
however, they're
okay.
able to make do, they make do. And the lack of empathy that we are seeing is really one of the reasons why you have, almost a new slate of candidates for the New Reformation Party, because people have um, recognized that enough is enough. And as much as we know that Nevis is a beautiful place, if it is not managed carefully and if it's not for the right purpose, then we can see the demise of the people of the Nevis and the people who live here. And so we are committed to bringing hope to the people, understanding that what they're seeing right now as a government and administration, that is not the way that it has to be. And we are quite prepared to provide programs, provide the plans, and have the ability. And definitely we have a record as the New Reformation Party to show how we can stimulate the economy, to show how we can put people first, and to provide employment opportunities for them. And so that is basically the modus operandi of the New Reformation Party. And we know that our people are struggling, and we hear those cries, and we're prepared to roll up our sleeves and assist our people as best we can.
Okay, I think reform in our P stands for reformation. So in a situation like this, definitely we need some ideas to reform the direction or change the direction in which we're going and reform the situation that St. Kitts Nevis, the whole world have found themselves in. I like what you said. It's not business as usual. People have to start working harder. You have to start becoming a little more creative and to see, not a little more, because it's a different. I say to people, the world that we knew ended in 2019. It was harsh and it was quick. Lots of the governments, lots of the countries, their heads didn't have enough time to prepare because it came in. But we, people who we elect, are supposed to be adaptable and able to make adjustment on the spur of the moment. These are people who understand the people who have or who appreciate the fact that people would have put them in office, because we have confidence that in situations like these, because disasters are not really something that is planned. These are things that happen so suddenly. And so heads of government, countries' heads, they have to be in a position where they can be able to make that adjustment and quickly. We have seen situation here in St. Kitts. We know, I mean, I must applaud the government though, and it's we have to do this. The government cannot do everything. We see that people are becoming like that. People are thinking that everything, every time, the government have to be able to subsidize or stimulate, and you have to also understand that it's the entire country that's been affected. Government sources of income has been affected, but it's the heads having the know-how how to make these changes. You talk about the situation that Nevis is facing right now. It's time. It's overcast situation. There's some areas that we can talk about, can we? Areas that you think where you see that has been neglected and government seriously needs to pay attention to. You can give us some ideas of in Nevis, the areas that really, really need to pay attention to at this point in time that has been seriously neglected?
Well, that's a very difficult way to start because all of the areas have been neglected. But I would just touch briefly on something that is recent, something that has been happening. We speak of our economy being tourism driven, and we for a long time have been looking at sand, sea, and sun, sand, and sea tourism, and we have seen where other islands have taken steps to set themselves apart and to develop a type of destination that can provide a unique appeal to the tourists. We must be able to say this is one of the reasons why Nevis is so special.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings me to the issue of our heritage sites.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that, we speak a lot about ecotourism.
Mm-hmm.
We speak about heritage tourism. And what we have seen within the last couple of months is really there was a fire at the bathhouse. There was the destruction of a wall by the slave market, and these are two of our principal heritage areas, and they have been allowed to fall into disrepair, and slowly but surely we're losing some of the valuable assets that would make Nevis special and unique. And so putting the necessary policies in place and programs in place to help restore our heritage sites. Some work is being done at the New River Estate, but certainly we must understand why these heritage sites are so important and why we should engage people to help to protect them and restore them, because it will only put us in a much better position. And I remember, always hearing, take care of what you have, because it's much easier to take care of what you have than to try to replace it. And that is so true in environmental terms when you look at wetlands, etc., natural resources. Once you destroy those natural resources, it's very difficult to replace them and the type of functions and services that they would provide. And so I'm looking at our environment and our heritage sites. Certainly, area that we need to make a priority to advance our tourism sector.
Well, I think the government would have an argument put forward that they're trying to prioritize. Yeah, it's good to make sure that our heritage is taken care of and are kept in place, because that's what we have and that's what our children will relate to. That is who we are. That is, when people come in, they would understand the type of people we are, and from since when we were that type of people. But I suppose the government is going to use the argument that we are experiencing hard times and tourism is just not happening because people are not coming or people are not traveling. I mean, that is the argument put forward. But when you look outside the world, people want to travel, but you have to create that destination where people, it's attractive and people would want to come to you, and not waiting for people to come to you, but encourage people to come to you. And I understand what you're trying to say. So there's certain emphasis and there's certain areas that government has to now start to prioritize. Because if you want to stimulate the economy, we know definitely there's not much we can do within ourselves. The agricultural industry is basically to feed us, because I'm not seeing it happening on a large scale where we can start exporting yet. That is something I think that needs to happen just about now. So if we really want to change and allow people to come in, you're saying that you have to start paying attention to our heritage site and making sure that we are unique in all the stuff that we have to offer, and that will encourage people to want to see us.
Creating it. So while we're doing this to enhance our tourism product, it's really where you're making the connection between our people here who are unemployed and ways to create employment. I mean, you mentioned a few minutes ago that we have to be creative and we have to find new ways. And to me, this is an easy connection with regards to this. This is the season where, because of COVID-19 and this time of year, it's a slow season. But yes, there's no money in the treasury. All that we have is what we receive from the federal government to pay salaries. But the NIA has the authority to borrow money for meaningful cause, for meaningful purpose. And so at this point in time, when you have the lowest interest rates possible, we're not hearing the NIA speaking about taking advantage of some of the low interest rates funds to put into the economy in Nevis, to create employment opportunities for people, so that these people can then end up having money to circulate with some of the small businesses, so that the Treasury can then collect taxes. Because when people are unemployed and they don't have money to spend, The small businesses are not seeing the revenue generation, and the small businesses cannot pay taxes. And we know that our government here in Nevis operates on two things: taxing the people and a handout from the federal government.
Hmm.
And when I say a handout, I always try to emphasize, yes, the federal government has a responsibility, but we have to be more forward thinking and identify ways that we can help ourselves. We're a small island, just over 12,000 people. And the NIA should be able to have a handle and manage the affairs of Nevis much more effectively and create a better standard of living for the people in Nevis. And so when I'm speaking about tourism and enhancing our tourism product, it is not that we're doing this for the tourists only to come and to be more appealing, but it also has to do with providing employment opportunities so that our people can work and contribute to the development of Nevis and to our tourism product. And so that is the connection. And across all of the sectors that we would look at, I speak about the concessionary funding and the lending that is available. And I am amazed that up to this point in time, the NIA has not indicated whether or not they're pursuing a concessionary loan from the Caribbean Development Bank or the United Nations Development Program or any of these other entities that provide concessionary funding, whether it's a loan, a small loan, whether they're grants, etc. But we have to understand that people need employment. People need to be able to work to keep the economy going. And that is the concern that we have. If the government is not making an effort to stimulate the economy, then we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult situation because the government would not be able to collect the taxes that it normally collects. Mm-hmm. And we know that is basically how the government has been running the affairs of Nevis.
Yeah, and I do understand that because I think people have overlooked that and not having an understanding that because of the fact that your sources of income, tourism, because we are tourism driven. I saw that since I was a child. I understood the risk that was. I'm now seeing and now having a better understanding of the information that I would have had then, realizing that we would have basically put all our eggs in one basket. The CBI program is working, but the whole world is in crisis. Everybody's finding it difficult. Their spending powers have been basically significantly been decreased. I asked the question, is it because they're afraid, not afraid, but because things are so bad that because a loan has to be repaid. And if you can't collect taxes because the small businesses have basically are non-existent at this point in time, the hotel industry, I mean, we see Nisbet Plantation is closed, and we're seeing, sooner or later, not more sooner than later, we're going to really start to feel the effects of the closures of the hotels. We have already, after a year, we haven't had any tourists to our shores, and so we are now actually feeling, earlier, the government could have talked about savings and all that they would have had, fiscal prudency, and the fact that government would have handled the purse quite well, but nothing is coming in. Government has been giving relief and reprieve to lots of the small businesses trying to keep people afloat. And you ask the question, is there a tree, a money tree? And if there's a tree, we are seriously in drought right now. No rain is falling, so that tree definitely will be dying more sooner than later. Where is the money going to come from? So can we use that for arguments? Again, no, you would not because you're the opposition. But do you think that is one of the issues that the NIA has at this point in time, that there's no money coming in and you can't tax poor people who have no money anyways, and the businesses are not there, so they're not collecting the taxes. People are unable to pay the electricity and water bills because they're not working. And so you are finding yourself into that Charlotte's Web type of situation?
But Sandra, the NIA went into the House just about 1 or 2 weeks ago. And you would expect that they would be telling the people what they're doing in order to stimulate the economy. But the purpose of going into the House was to levy more taxes on the people who are out of work. And so when we talk about the priorities of a government, how can it be your priority as this point in time, to go into the House to pass a solid waste ordinance that is going to put more financial pressure on the people of Nevis. Yes, we understand, and I agree fully because I am one that is a staunch advocate for the environment, that we need to curb the the um, the damage caused by solid waste, and we need to curb the type of attitudes that people have with regards to this. But is this the time? Is this the priority of the government right now? Now look at a different scenario. When you go into the house, and if you want to deal with the solid waste bill, how about providing incentives where the government can um, reimburse or incentivize small businesses or even individuals to assist in the reduction of solid waste? When we look at the treasury and we say there's no money in the treasury, and so the government, the NIA, their hands are tied. Now is the best time to go back to the budget, reprioritize, reallocate funding to deal with the more pressing needs right now. And now is the best time to gain access to some of the concessionary financing that is available. Because when you have concessionary funding, it means that the interest rates are as low as they're going to be. The term of repayment is as long as it can be. And so nobody has any money. Are we going to sit back and look at the economy implode even more? When we have budgets to be opening up new roads and doing feasibility studies at this point in time, those things can wait.
I know.
Those things can wait. And so it goes back to the thinking of this government that we have right now. And what is their priority? And do they really feel connected to the people? Are they hearing the cries of the people? And I don't think that they are. I know that they're not hearing. Because when on one hand you can say you cannot get any payment, you do not have any work, businesses are closing, but we're still going to disconnect the utilities. We're still going to disconnect your water. I mean, what measure was put in place to say this is how we can assist you? And when we do get some funding from the federal government as part of the stimulus package, how was it managed? No program in place to say, well, this is the full circle that we would want to see. We get some funding to assist the agricultural sector. How does that trickle down to every single person? No. You get the money, you disperse it, and nothing is in place to allow that money to regenerate or to help more than just the person that it is handed to. And so we know the criteria that is used when the stimulus money is there. How do people gain access to that money? Right? So I would have spoken, I speak a lot about good governance and the need to have proper standardized procedures in place. Here in Nevis, we're seeing too much victimization. We're seeing too much discrimination. And the government likes it that way. But what NRP proposes and what NRP operates on is fairness and integrity. And once in government, you must be able to level the playing field. Every single person must have an equal opportunity to gain access to employment and additional resources in Nevis once they're eligible to do so.
Dr. Daniel, we hear these terminologies all the time, especially coming from politicians and aspiring politicians about leveling the playing field and about creating opportunities for everyone. But the sad thing about it is that every time, now you're having that discussion. When CCM was vying for that position of government, you were hearing those same terminologies about leveling the playing field and victimization is a word that everybody uses every time. But it happens every time because if those were the areas or the topics that were discussed and it was based on that basis why people would have changed government, why you now who are trying to get in have to use the same terms? victimization. So people are still being victimized. So how can you use that as a basis for argument? And when you go and you're doing the same thing, and that is the problem that I have with political parties and politicians. I mean, you
Well,
use yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You know what? You hold politicians accountable. You
Hmm.
hold politicians accountable because you cannot say that your main objective, your main purpose is to bring prosperity back to Nevis and for everyone to feel that they have an equal opportunity to contribute to nation building. But then you go in and you do not put the necessary standards in place. I was at I had a conversation last evening. I was on 2020 Vision, and I spoke about where are the standards for the procurement of goods and services. Why is it that you're going to be building a hospital, the new hospital wing that is being built here in Nevis? How is it that a minister of government, or an eminent minister of government, is able to get that contract?
Wow.
And those are the things that I say, not in an administration that I am leading. Those things cannot happen. We understand the importance of having a level playing field. We understand the importance of having standardized means and standardized criteria. And so whether you are blue or green or yellow or red or whatever, once you meet those criteria, then you have the systems in place to ensure that all processes are dealt with in a fair manner.
Wow.
Right? Right now, what we are seeing is where people are being handpicked. And that's when we speak to governance and what procedures that they have in place. What is the procurement policy for the NIA today? How do they procure goods and services? And if they cannot tell you that, then they have no business running about talking about good governance. And these are the things that we are looking at as the NIA that you must have in place. And if somebody from Timbuktu or wherever wants to do business here in Nevis, then they must be aware of what the criteria is and how they would be assessed in trying to do work here.
You see, the ordinary man doesn't understand those terminologies. The ordinary man understands, um, and the unfortunate thing is that they're the majority of the electorate. The ordinary man understands that the government says that he's going to give $400 to bus drivers, or the government says that we're going to give you a PAP, or the government says that is what the ordinary man understands. The ordinary man doesn't understand what you just said about leveling the playing field, because everybody seems to want to know what they can get, what me as an individual can have. And I think those are the difficulties, and I pray to God that the party that you're head of would not get caught up in these same practices, because we're hearing it all the time, and you have the confidence based on how it is said, the tone and everything else, recognizing that it's wrong. And then for the life of me, I can't seem to understand how somebody is going to say it is wrong, and when they go in, they do the same thing. And we, as the people who would have elected them, $50 that we would have gotten during that time would have been sufficient.
Well, I think now more than ever, Sandra.
Mm-hmm.
I think now more than ever, I think this is the worst situation that the people in Nevis have been in, where the discrimination is so blatant. And I speak about where it's almost as if this is the norm. This is the way that things are supposed to operate, right? But people know that they're struggling. And we speak about the need for representation. And where are your representatives? When you have a concern, can you sit and meet with your representative, and can they address the matter? You know, I mean, when you look at, for example, I'm in the St. James area, and when you look around St. James area, and you ask people, what has been done? What has been done by your representative to make your life better? And people cannot speak to what has been done to create employment opportunities to make their lives better. We spoke quite extensively about the Newcastle Police Station, and that is supposed to be a feather in the cap of the representative. But the Newcastle Police Station was repaired.
Hmm.
That's nothing new. We didn't bring anything new to the community. And the problem is that the police station that was budgeted at about $3.5 million ended up with a budget of more than $5 million,
Overruns
and
over
no one
$2
can give
million.
account for where that extra funding went
Wow.
officially,
Wow.
right? So when people speak about development, you know, most of the projects that you see, capital projects, they have done, and they're not done to completion. You have a budget. You start out to do, for example, an entire stretch of road, and when you reach to halfway, the project ends because the money that was supposed to be able to cover the entire road somehow runs out. Where's the oversight?
Hmm.
Where's the bids? Where all the documentation that you need to ensure that if somebody gives you a bid to do a project for $10,000, that it must be done for $10,000. Where are the repercussions, right? And so when you have one person being butler, cook, washer, whatever it is, then you have these situations. We look at the situation at housing and land, and the material that somehow mysteriously ended up on somebody's private property,
Wow.
right? Who gives account for these kinds of things? And so when I'm saying when you do not have policies in place, then it provides the opportunity for the misuse and misappropriation of the people's resources. And we, the people, have to keep paying taxes to support these types of behavior. And, I do not get into people's personal affairs, etc., but I'm saying the people in Nevis must recognize that their tax dollars are not being utilized for their benefit.
Oh, Janice, how do you? What is your take on? You're the leader of the NRP, so you should have some idea. If by chance you would want to align yourself with a party in St. Kitts, would you go to the same? Would you do the same as it's been done now, where you can hold two portfolios? Because when you see situations like this, and I've had a problem with that, where how can you do two jobs fully? It needs your full attention all the time, um, at one time. And that is the problem I now find it's a problem for me where Nevis the elected members have a full time position in St. Kitts and a full time position in Nevis. What is your take on that? Would it continue to be a habit if you should win the next election, or is it something that you're comfortable with?
Well, the fundamental premise of the NRP, and these are some of the policies that I would have met with the party. The NRP has indicated clearly that it would not have the same candidate serving in the local and the federal assembly
Good.
simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
which means NRP has a slate of candidates for the local election to work in the NIA for the best interest of the people of Nevis, and a different slate of candidates to work in the federal government.
Good.
And so that is a policy of NRP. And that situation that we have right now would not occur under an NRP administration. That is something that is quite clear.
Mm-hmm.
And with regards to working with the federal government, we understand the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we understand the role of the federal government and the NIA, and we understand certain responsibilities that the federal government has to the NIA. And so, most importantly, you have a constitution. It is broad. There's room for flexibility. Most importantly, one would have to sit, the Premier of Nevis would have to sit with the Prime Minister of St. Kitts, whoever that may be, and discuss the way forward. Now, I would not go to the Prime Minister of St. Kitts to say this is what we want for Nevis without first understanding
Mm-hmm.
from my NIA what it is we want, and we go and we put what we want on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and we debate around that. Not where we go and whatever is given to us, we accept. And most recently, the most glaring situation is where the funding, the assistance, the food assistance program by Social Security, that was rolled out, where St. Kitts would receive 80% and Nevis would receive 20%. And the question is, you look at our census data, which we're using to track the COVID-19
Mm-hmm.
cases, and you see that 25%, it's 24.7% per se, is the population in Nevis compared to 76% in St. Kitts.
Mm-hmm.
So it may seem like a small amount, but what is the basis? I cannot understand. What is the basis to arrive at the Social Security providing assistance and 80% stays in St. Kitts and 20% for Nevis? The population is not 80-20. The contribution from Nevis Social Security to the federal Social Security is not 80-20. So when this amount was being put forward, it must have been decided somewhere. Where were our representatives to say, this is not going to be received well by the people of Nevis? And as small as it may seem, it just goes to show that the people of Nevis are not being represented when decisions are being made. And these are the things that we have to recognize. If you cannot negotiate and if you cannot have a voice to address these simple matters, then how can you address the larger matters of the CBI allocation, etc.?
Well,
The focus is not the people of Nevis under this administration, and that is the problem.
it's about
If the
going
people
back.
of Nevis
Sorry.
were the focus,
Mm-hmm.
then the decisions would have been reflecting at least some consideration in that direction.
You see, there are lots of legislations in place, and there are lots of before you have old legislation, and it's about sitting down now and just like you said, it show that Nevis is not just a person who or a country that waits on handouts for St. Kitts. It's not an argument that you put forward without having the necessary information or rules and terms and conditions in place. You can't argue of new terms and conditions when you have not had that discussion. And I think that is what is absolutely necessary. It's time for that discussion where you start to look at the situation then, because we are living in a changing world, things are changing. And just like you say, it's not an 80-20 ratio in the population of St. Kitts to Nevis. And you always see that 20% for Nevis and 80% for St. Kitts, and you ask yourself the same question that you have, and it's good. It's a good thing that you would have made that statement, because I've always wondered, on Nevision myself, and I've always wondered it's lack of representation. Who is representing us? Who speak to us and who have a good understanding of what we need, or Nevisions need? And that is the area when one start looking at how they themselves are benefiting in opposed to how the people of Nevis should benefit. And that's the question you ask. As a citizen, who's representing us?
But look at even the COVID-19 situation, where a PCR test in St. Kitts is $270. In Nevis, it's $400.
What?
Why is that discrepancy?
Oh, it has
Why
to
is
come.
that discrepancy?
You have to pay for travel.
No, I mean,
But it's always
think about representation.
Yeah,
just between St. Kitts and Nevis, look at that.
I see
and
that.
you go to St. Vincent, and they're paying $26
Wow.
for PCR test. And we're part of one CARICOM.
Wow.
We're part of one OECS. So why such disparity?
Well, I've always wondered that too, because when you come to St. Kitts, the prices in St. Kitts are somewhat cheaper than that of Nevis. And I've always wondered when somebody's going to seriously look at it and say that Nevisions are, and the salary scale is basically the same, or even maybe a little lower. And but you see, they always look at the cost of living in St. Kitts. It's supposed to be higher than that of Nevis, but yet still the prices are much cheaper in St. Kitts in a lot of cases than in Nevis. And I don't seem to understand. And it's been going on for the longest while. Why?
A very long time.
Yeah.
And that's when we say you negotiate. And if just based on a population ratio, you're already at 24%, 25% for Nevis. When you look at the cost of living on the two islands, there's something called equity, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we must be able to bring all of those factors to the table and determine what it's going to be. But you know what I'm comfortable about is the fact that when NRP gets into government, the funding that we receive from Syncit, that is supposed to be additional funding.
A bonus, I call
It
it.
will not be the only funding
Yeah.
because you will have a government that understands what is available, understands what needs to be done, and find ways of generating its own, building its own economy rather than just sitting down and waiting on that funding. And so right now the current administration, they have it quite easy. They have it quite easy because they know they're going to be getting some funding. They don't really care about the cries and the concerns of the people. And for them, it's just, you know, business as usual. We're going to get this amount from St. Kitts, and we don't have to make any large effort to try to get additional funding to help the people. Because guess what? Their salaries are not being affected. The only salaries not being affected are government workers right now. In the tourism sector, agriculture
Wow.
sector, every other sector has been impacted by the COVID-19 and you know, layoffs and closed, etc. Government workers have been able to continue to get paid.
Things have to change, though, Janice. I'm serious about it because we know that lots of some Nivisians were working at the Hyatt. This plantation is closed. The Four Seasons has taken on a basically skeleton staff, and most of the people who are working in the the hospitality industry. Just like you said, I mean, how much so? The employment rate government where the number of people employed by government in opposed to that in the private sector, and then you'll be able to analyze the situation as it is. You know, you're saying some things that people, the ordinary man, never thought about, and as a matter of fact, it sounds really good where you have a politician now who come in having an understanding and talking on behalf of the people. Not just the economy, as they claim, because they always talk about the economy, this, the economy, that, but it's the people who are seriously affected. And they don't talk about the way in which people are affected by the decline in the economy, the economical, um, the economical struggles that you're facing on different islands. It's how the people are affected. And I feel for Nivisians, you know. I know there are a lot of people who are not working right now because of the fact the hotel industries, they're closed, and you don't know when they're going to open again, because Nevis has always been at a disadvantage because you don't have cruise ships coming into Nevis. You have the passengers going there, and you're heavily dependent again on what St. Kitts is doing. We need to see an economy that is for unique to Nevis, not is so heavily dependent on what St. Kitts give. I would like to really know what the real agreement, the Charleston Accord, where St. Kitts, how much money St. Kitts should give Nevis from the CBI program. We always hear about it. We know it has always been questioned. But the question is, what was the agreement? We're not hearing that. I don't have an understanding if that was agreed, or just to get a portion of, or it's a set figure, or it's a portion of the whole. I don't know. Nobody seems to know.
Sandra, what I would say, right?
Hmm.
If the Charleston Accord was designed with the people of Nevis
In mind?
in mind,
Hmm.
at the center, the people of Nevis would have known what is in the Charleston Accord. The people of Nevis would have been able to contribute to what it is they want. But the Charleston Accord was an expedient way for someone to fulfill their personal desires.
Wow.
That is my assessment of the Charleston Accord. And you're not going to tell me that when the Charleston Accord was first developed, when the premier was in the federal cabinet and would have made up the sixth member of that cabinet, when you could have called the shots, so to speak, because your vote was needed. Nothing was done regarding the Charleston Accord. because I guess he would have gotten what he wanted out of it.
Hmm.
Nothing was done. At the last election, when you have 6 seats in St. and when three became less than two, as people like to say, then is when you start to hear noise about fair share and the Charleston Accord and
Yeah.
who didn't meet up with the agreement. If your interest at the very beginning was the people of Nevis never changed. But as your personal desires change,
Wow.
as your personal desires change, then you start to make things relevant at different times. You cannot come in and negotiate on behalf of people and not follow through. You were in a position where you could have had this, you know, gazetted. You could have had the arrangement, solidified. But no, you ignored the Charleston Accord, and now demanding fair share and special meeting. After all that was done, to sour the relationship, you know.
Hmm.
When you're friends with someone, they would assist you. They would try to help you. They would see things from your perspective. But once you have soured the relationship, it's very difficult to get things moving forward the way that you would want. And that's why the position of NRP is basically we would have to work with whoever is in government,
Yeah.
not for NRP, not for myself, but for the people's best interest,
Wow.
for the people's best interest.
Hmm.
And that is why I am certain that you would see a totally different type of governance structure with the NRP in government. And the way that the island is running right now, we've been saying change must come. Change can only come if the people vote for the change. And I can assure you, the conversations that I've been having with people as I walk back and forth, you say a lot of politicians speak about victimization. It's like a buzzword. But I can assure you, victimization is not a buzzword in India. And I would stand up and speak with people, and they would be looking around and say, I don't want nobody to be talking to you,
Hmm.
but you got my support,
Wow.
right? And that is the level of fear that people have. Because we have a government right now where it's either you do as I say or you pay the consequences. People are being reassigned to different positions because of some talk about political affiliation. People are losing their jobs because of talk of political affiliation. What kind of democracy is this? You know, people should be able to express their thoughts and their ideas freely without fear of victimization.
And
And that is not the case in Nevis right now. And we have to stop that trend.
I do
We
hope.
have to get it back with Nevis, people in Nevis, we can feel free, we can express our feelings, and we can not feel threatened that we will be losing our livelihoods just because we express our opinion.
And Janice, like I said, I've heard that so many times. I've heard parties who want to get in make statements like that, and when they get in, we have the same discussion again because that was one of CCM's biggest debate about victimization, and it was something that the government would not tolerate and would not do. And now you're saying that it's a practice that is happening. And then, as a member of the electorate, we ask the same question: how much longer are we going to be fooled by politicians who wants to stay in or wants to get in? How much longer are we going to sit down and what politician care less about us, the electorate, only care for us one time that's at the poll? I like what you're saying, and I can't say you are otherwise because you haven't had the chance. It's about giving you a chance and people realizing that you're not doing it. I believe people, I don't care, people say, oh, give them a chance to perform. If you're on the outside, you have enough time to plan. So as soon as you get in, it's business as usual. It's not business as usual. It's changing what the norm, because people get in there, no ideas, fool off the people while they were on the podium. When they get in there, they're bankrupt for ideas, and they just roll out for the 5 years and come back with the same old talk for re-election, and some people are quite comfortable. Divisions is a different breed of people. They're very independent. They do a lot of things on their own, and they know how they're adaptable. They know how to make the adjustment when time comes. Um, we are not the kind of people who gets an over our head into debt because that's not how we were raised. That's not the culture we come from. And so sometimes it's so much easier for them to just go to the polls and say, okay, c'est la vie. It's the same old, same old. And so you have to, I like what you're saying. Um, Educating the electorate for me is first and foremost because these are information that the ordinary man do not have and don't care to know. And this is the problem that when they don't care to know, you put back, you make the same mistake of putting the same people back in because the real information you're not privy to. And I would ask you, you've done a great job. I am so enlightened. I am wide eyed and open mouth by the things that you were saying. And I do hope that it is something that you would live up to because we've been fooled over the years. We've been fooled. And we continue to be fooled by politicians. And it's time that somebody take the stance. And I'm glad it's coming from a woman's mouth because we're more loyal, we're very genuine, and we do understand the cry of people because that's who we are. We are the nurturing side of both genders. And I do hope that Nivisions would hear you, Janice.
Well, thank you, Sandra. And what I would say is that having a vision of where we want to see Nevis, I think is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're operating right now without a vision. We do not know where the finish line is. Of course, there's never a finish line in governing. But once you know the direction that you want to take, then it's much easier to stay on that path and to achieve what you set out to achieve. And we have spoken quite extensively about, diversifying the economy. We've spoken about the blue-green economy being an integral part of our program, our agenda for developing Nevis in a different way. We've spoken about our sustainable development goals and how we would have the benchmarks that are globally recognized. And so at the end of the day, when we get into government and we outline our agenda, it will be very easy to see that we are keeping on track with what we set out to do and to diversify the economy, make it more self-reliant, standardize the necessary procedures, have formal arrangements in place as we need to. These are the things that we have to do, we have to put in place. And you would see a type of governance that, it would have to be one of the best in the Caribbean region, if not the world.
I'm looking forward.
That is our aim.
I'm really looking forward to that happening, not just from an NRP standpoint, but from a political standpoint all over. I want somebody to be the envy of the other Caribbean islands because everybody basically have the same perception. Everybody basically do the same thing. Politicians, like I said, you start on the mark, you're not set, and it's go. But we're still seeing people on the mark. They're not moving forward. Most politicians, when you get in there, that's where you stay, on the mark. And the practice remains the same. You're not seeing that change that they always talk about on the platform. We're going to do this, and we never seen it done. And I think that people now should start to look in another direction, not where the politicians are going to take us, but where we want where we want to go, because that's a problem. Just like you said it, it's just not happening. It's just not happening. And everybody use COVID as an excuse. COVID is not an excuse, because if you understand where you want your people to go, you would have the ideas and how to get your people there. And that is one of the reasons why people elect people who are visionary, people who can see bumpy roads ahead and how you're going to maneuver. That is what we do as electorates when we vote for people, is to make sure that when there are trying times that we can lean on, we have a shoulder to lean on. And when there are the good times, that you would practice good fiscal prudency, and you're the one who's supposed to make sure that when it rains and it's pouring, you have the umbrella. And that's what it is. And we are really looking forward to a government that we can trust, a government that we can depend on. I suppose Divisions are saying the same thing, and it's a new era. We have new people at the helm who wants to govern Nevis, and let's see if that is going to make a difference in where it goes. Dennis, thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I would have you some more because it's people wants to know what you're going to offer differently.
Right, well, thank you for having me, and I look forward to the opportunity to be able to spread the ideas that people understand what our vision is, things that we would like to do, and to understand that it is not business as usual. There is hope for Better Nevis, but change must come. We must change the government and put a government in place that has the best interests of the people at heart and who is prepared to work for the people who have elected us and put us in government.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Have a great day.
Okay, you do likewise. For those of
Thanks.
you who have
Okay.
been tuned to Win FM, I do hope that this program was been informative and it's information that would be beneficial to you. It's Friday. It's the day where people would want to rid themselves of the stress of the week and want to let their head down. But we have to remember that COVID-19 is a reality. We have people who are dying from it, people who are getting very sick from it. And in order for us to be a part of the stop the spreading of COVID, we have to make sure that we take the necessary precautions. It's vaccinate, wearing your mask, hand sanitizing, social distancing. That those protocols have worked in the past. Let's make sure that we do it. It depends heavily on the things that we do makes the difference of how fast the virus would spread. And those of you who wants to travel and don't seem to know what to do, there's a young lady in Nevis, Omel Wilkin. Her number is 662-9991. For all your travel needs, you can call this number. Let me tell you, anywhere in the world you want to go, she'll be able to advise you. It's not just the information that she gives, it's the charm, it's the ease in which and the comfort in which she can really get you to the point of where you want to go. And she always makes it affordable. That's the problem with her. She's one of those who give herself away so that you can be comfortable. So 662-9991 for those of you who are finding it very difficult in traveling, the difficulties of traveling, finding an airline or aircraft that is going to take you there. Omel has the solution to all your problem. It has been a very, 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 very beautiful Friday with you, and I do hope that we can tune in again next Friday where I can bring someone who can give you the information that you need. In the meantime, stay tuned to Win FM 98.9. Voices is up next. My name is Sandra Queely Atherton, and I am taking my leave. I'll see you next Friday.